Dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like first of all to thank to Ganu Diop for the invitation to the 8th World Congress on Religious Freedom. My name is Elizabeta Kitanovic, as you have heard, and I'm coming from the Conference of European Churches, which is a fellowship of some 114 Orthodox, Protestant, Anglican, and Old Catholic churches from all European countries, plus 40 National Council of Churches and organizations in partnership. CAC was founded in 1959 and has his offices in Brussels and Strasbourg in Europe. So I will have a different input in this session. I myself Orthodox and I am not an expert on Reformation, but in this regard we are working a lot to promote religious tolerance for peaceful coexistence in Europe. And I will give you a few hints how we as a Conference of European Churches are working daily on these issues. Building the trust between communities by combating intolerance and discrimination can be done on several ways. We all know how much religious pluralism is necessary as it contributes to good neighboring relations and a decrease in tensions among people and nations and religious communities. If only these tensions and the disputes would be solved, it could reflect on the positive way to the development of the well-being of all religious communities. One of the ways that Conference of European Churches has chosen to do prevention of intolerance and discriminations is via human rights education program. As Christians, we believe that we are all made in God's image and His likeness. That means that we all have human dignity with no matter to which ethnicity, sex, age we belong to. Human dignity does not have gender or age. The core issue of human rights are protection and promotion of human dignity for all human beings. The first article of Universal Declaration of Human Rights says, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Upon this article, human rights system has built its core working areas such as freedom, equality, and solidarity. That means that all human beings do have equal protection against all forms of discrimination. The human rights system also embraces freedom of thought, consciousness, and religion, as well as freedom of opinion and expression. By social and economic rights protection, we achieve solidarity in the society that all people, according to the legal human rights instruments, do have. That means that all people must have access to the health service, education, adequate standard of living, etc. We all know that the state needs to guarantee all human rights for all people. Some people faced with ban to build their worship places, some with extreme poverty, others with discrimination in the workplace because of their religion or belief. The question is how gathering like this one can contribute to the greater understanding of the identity of human beings in order to prevent discrimination and intolerance. How can religious and political leaders respond to these challenges from the ethical and legal point of view in order to protect the collective interest of humanity? The Conference of European Churches has developed in the last 5 years a human rights training manual, and I have 2 copies of this if somebody wants to have this publication, which serves as a basic material for churches to organize different sorts of trainings and educational material for its members. The ideas to learn more about human rights came from the church organizations and churches who requested the tool to learn how to deal with human rights, to find out more about the links between Christian values and human rights, and learn more about tolerance and non-discrimination, protection and promotion of human dignity for all people. In some religious circles, some religious leaders very easy agree that they prefer to speak about mutual respect and not tolerance. In addition, to equip our members with church human rights education material, we have created as well Church Human Rights electronic library, where those who are giving the lessons on human rights as Christians and Christian values can find additional material. In our European context, churches were firstly interested to learn more about religious freedom and belief, as in this context very easily churches suffer from internal divisions and they call sometimes one another sects. Firstly, we have to explain that the term sect is not defined by the international legal standards and that freedom of religion or belief is there for every human being, with no matter to which ethnicity, age he or she belongs to, and also that it's not there to defend religious teaching. Thematic reference group on human rights of the Conference of European Churches, every year it's organizing Human Rights Summer School for human rights advocates coming from 40 European countries representing their churches. The idea is basically to help to theologians to deal with human rights, and each of these training starts with theology, then the explanation of the legislative framework, and with the best practices, but also with the challenges that the church officers and the priests and pastors are facing on the ground. The first summer school was devoted to freedom of religion and belief and was organized with academic support of University of Leuven in Belgium and took place in Palermo, hosted by a small minority denomination which is called Italian Protestant Federation. There were many questions, and the training was particularly interesting for the minority member churches who wanted to learn how they can improve their lives in predominantly Muslim, Christian, and Jewish countries, how they could and should deal with secularization processes in Europe, which are stronger and stronger every day. In this regard, as there was a need to learn more about freedom of religion or belief, our diverse members have also asked about special custom-tailored training on these issues. So we did a training in the Western Balkan region, where the war were, as you could see in the film previously. And this war was inspired by division on ethnicity, and religion was added to it. We decided for that training to invite also Muslims and Jewish representatives. The tone of the training was very different. The participants wanted to learn more about one another's religious way of living. It was very clear that religious prejudices were there, but the goodwill about learning from one another prevailed. One of the imams who participated in this training said, "Why we didn't have this training 2 decades ago? Perhaps the disasters of the war in Balkans would be far less than they were in reality." When theological issues were discussed, it was possible to notice that religious principles during the training on religious freedom were so much similar, and lots of the common issues were to be discovered. Since then, we have summer school every year, and one after that took place in Sweden, where theologians were discussing anti-discrimination legislation. Then the last year, the one summer school took place in Greece, in the Orthodox settings, where we discussed the rights of women and children. And the last one took place in Italy this year, a few months ago, and was devoted to migration. For confronting intolerance is not always easy to find exact solutions. We tried to equip churches and human rights advocates to help to those who are victimized realize the negative responses to their gender, appearance, disability, language, race, as many believers come to the church to seek help. In Conference of European Churches, we have understood that the realization of human rights is our common responsibility, and it depends on the contribution to each and every of us is willing to make. The denial of human rights, it's not only personal tragedy, but also creates conditions for social and political unrest, making space for violence and conflict to grow between societies and nations. Human beings are born equal and should have equal opportunities to develop their dreams. The problem is that in practice, this is very difficult to achieve. The commitment of religious and political leaders to meet in a forum like this is very unique, as it provides messages and actions on peace and harmony for which we are all responsible. Thank you.